Crowds gathered in Minneapolis this afternoon to honor Preddy and also demand that the remaining federal agents in Minnesota leave. Joe McCoy was at that march and has the latest.
There's a moment on this body cam tape, maybe 3 seconds long, where everything changes. A cop gives a clear command. The driver doesn't comply. And what happens next is something no news anchor described accurately when they reported the story. I went through the raw footage myself, slowed it down, and broke it apart piece by piece, because the version you saw on TV is missing the part where real people got hurt. So let's walk through this together, start to finish, and let the camera do the talking. Here's why this stop stands out from anything that got covered in the news cycle. And it's not because of what the officer did. It's because of what the tape caught in a moment that lasted maybe 3 seconds and never made it into a single broadcast summary. So let's set the scene. This is a routine patrol stop, mid-evening, on a surface street. The officer wasn't responding to anything violent. No shots fired, no chase already in progress. He clocked a vehicle moving through the area and pulled it over for a traffic violation. Standard stuff, the kind of stop that happens hundreds of times a night in any mid-sized city. He pulls up behind the car, lights on, and walks up to the driver's side window the same way officers do every single shift. And here's where the tape gets specific. The officer approaches, hand not on his weapon, posture open. He's not aggressive. He asks for license and registration, and then gives a direct verbal command to keep hands visible. You can hear it clearly on the audio. It's calm, it's plain, and it's exactly what the training says to do in that moment. Because when an officer approaches a stopped vehicle, there's a whole protocol in place. Hands visible, ID ready. Stay in the vehicle until told otherwise. It's not arbitrary. It's designed to keep both the officer and the driver safe. The driver doesn't comply. And I want to be precise here because this matters. It's not that they fumbled for their wallet or didn't hear the command. The driver looks directly at the officer and does nothing. No hands up, no movement toward the glove box, just a flat refusal. That's a different thing than hesitation. Officers are trained to recognize that difference because non-compliance at a traffic stop is actually one of the higher risk moments in patrol work. When someone ignores a direct command, the protocol shifts. The officer has to treat the situation as potentially dangerous until proven otherwise. So what happens next is the officer repeats the command. Still calm, still clear. And on the tape, you can see his body shift. He takes a small step back, keeps his eye line on the driver's hands. That's not aggression. That's the trained response to a situation where compliance isn't happening, and the reason why is unknown. Most people watching this on the news just saw tense stop. What actually happened was a textbook non-compliance situation playing out exactly the way training says it does. The news version called it escalating tensions. But escalating tensions implies both sides are doing something. What the tape shows is one person following protocol and one person making a deliberate choice not to. That distinction is not a small thing. It changes the entire shape of the story. So here's the question that matters. If the footage is this clear, why did every outlet that covered it land on the same vague description? What happens next in the tape is exactly why. Right after the driver refuses that second command, there's an 8-second sequence that starts with the car pulling away. That sequence was never described in any broadcast. Not summarized, not mentioned, not referenced. Just gone from the story entirely. And those 8 seconds are what we're walking through right now on the raw footage, before anything got edited down for air. What happens next is the part nobody reported. And it's not a background detail. It's the actual outcome of the whole incident. The car pulls away fast. Not a slow roll, not easing into traffic. It accelerates hard from a dead stop and moves through the intersection without slowing down. The officer's body cam catches the first few seconds of that, and then the vehicle is out of frame. But traffic cameras picked it up from there. The footage shows the car running through at least one red light, crossing into oncoming lanes, and moving at a speed that was way above what that road was built for. This isn't reconstructed from witness accounts. It's on camera, documented in the incident report. And here's the thing about that road. It wasn't empty. There were other drivers out there, people who had nothing to do with the stop, nothing to do with the officer, nothing to do with any of it. Just regular people driving home or wherever they were going that evening. And that car came through their section of road at full speed with no warning. So let's talk about what flight from a traffic stop actually looks like statistically, because most people don't know this. When a driver flees a stop, the data shows that a significant portion of those pursuits or flights end in a crash. And when they do crash, it's often not just the fleeing driver who gets hurt. Bystanders, other drivers, pedestrians, people with zero connection to whatever started the stop, end up in the incident report. That's exactly what happened here. The vehicle lost control and hit another car that was moving through a legal green light. The impact pushed that second car off its lane entirely. When other units arrived on scene, they found the suspect's vehicle against a curb, front end damaged, and the other car with 2 people inside who needed medical attention. Those 2 people were not suspects. They weren't connected to anything. They just got hit because someone decided not to follow a direct command at a traffic stop 4 blocks away. In a matter of seconds, this went from a routine stop to a multi-vehicle crash with injured civilians. And almost none of that made it into the coverage. The reports that ran on this story focused on the stop itself, the officer's commands, the tension on the tape, and then basically stopped there. The crash, the other car, the injuries, that context was just absent. Here's why that matters. When you describe a stop as tense or controversial and leave out the part where uninvolved people got hurt, you're not giving an incomplete story. You're giving a different story. One where the stakes are a disagreement between a driver and a cop. The real story is that a choice made at that window had consequences that moved outward and hit people who had no say in any of it. The footage answers the question of why the driver didn't comply too. Watch the tape closely, and the non-compliance isn't confusion or fear. The driver was already moving before the officer finished the second command. That's not a reaction, that's a decision that was already made. And the seconds after that car left frame are what connect that decision directly to the crash scene 4 blocks away, and to the 2 people in that other car who didn't go home the same way they left. The camera got all of it. The command, the refusal, the car pulling away, the crash 4 blocks down. That sequence is on tape, and it doesn't change based on who decides to air it or how they cut it together. So next time you see a 2-paragraph summary of a stop like this, just ask what's missing. Because there's almost always more on the tape than what makes it into the story. There's more footage like this coming, and it's worth watching sooner rather than later. Stick around, because bye for now isn't something I'm saying yet.